Unfortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. It's the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual.
Diddy completely lost control in the courtroom yesterday, throwing papers and shouting at his own legal team. The trigger Megyn Kelly just publicly declared her support for Cassie, and it seems to have pushed him over the edge. What exactly did Megyn say that caused such a violent reaction? The courtroom had to be temporarily cleared as security stepped in. This public breakdown might just be the turning point in a case that's already rocking Hollywood to its core.
He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual about whom I wish to hear nothing after this trial is done. The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law. I actually think it's going to be pretty easy, but I can see what the defense is doing here, trying to say, all right, he has these, quote, freak-offs, weird, kinky group sex in Hollywood. That's not an illegal thing. It happens all the time.
Cassie Ventura, where she revealed that after the relationship had ended with Sean Combs, there was an incident where he raped her. She talked about how later on she had PTSD flashbacks of her experience with him of the freak-offs. And at one point she came home and told her husband while their kids were sleeping that she just couldn't take it anymore and thought about walking into traffic.
If you don't have the consent of the women or the men, as the case may be, it is illegal. But okay, we're going to argue over whether they were willing participants. It's almost like a Harvey Weinstein situation where he's going to say they willingly took drugs.
Another thing we learned about yesterday was her drug addiction. She said that she had an addiction to opiates, Errol.
They're going to say, absolutely not. He drugged me against my will. Maybe there were drugs in that baby oil, maybe in another way, but I definitely didn't consent to being drugged or to being raped.
The courtroom fell. Completely silent yesterday afternoon, Diddy, who's been keeping his cool throughout this trial, suddenly snapped. It happened so fast that even the judge looked stunned. 1 minute, the proceedings were moving along as normal. The next minute, Diddy was on his feet, face twisted with rage. Security guards rushed toward him as legal documents went flying across the room. Diddy started shouting at his own legal team, not quietly either. Everyone in that courtroom heard every word his lawyers tried to calm him down, putting their hands on his shoulders, speaking in hushed tones, but he kept shaking them off. He was pointing at his phone screen, shoving it in their faces, showing them something that clearly set him off. People sitting in the back say they heard him repeating phrases like, "She's lying," and "They're all turning against me," while pacing back and forth between the defense table and the gallery railing. His movements were erratic. He'd stop suddenly, then start pacing again, running his hands through his hair, loosening his tie, like he couldn't breathe. The situation got so intense that court officials made the decision to temporarily clear the room. As people filed out, Diddy's personal security team, those guys are massive, by the way, formed a human barrier around him. They weren't restraining him exactly, but they were definitely making sure nobody could get close to him or capture too much of what was happening on their phones. "I've never seen anything like it," said one court insider who's been covering celebrity cases for 15 years. This wasn't just someone having a bad moment. He completely lost it. It wasn't just anger either. There was fear in his eyes, real fear. Another source close to the proceedings told me they've never seen Diddy this unhinged before, not even in private moments when he thought no one was watching. His lead attorney tried multiple times to request a formal recess, but Diddy kept cutting him off mid-sentence, insisting he needed to speak directly to the judge. The judge maintaining her composure refused this unusual request and instead called both legal teams to approach the bench. Diddy tried to follow, but his own lawyers physically blocked his path, whispering urgently to him. So what exactly triggered this meltdown, court? Documents filed this morning revealed Diddy received a notification on his phone just minutes before he lost control. Someone sent him a link to something that changed everything in an instant. His entire demeanor shifted the moment he looked at That screen, that notification. It was about Megyn Kelly's broadcast, where she publicly declared her support for Cassie and laid out what she called overwhelming evidence against Diddy Kelly, with her massive platform and reputation for legal analysis, had just thrown her considerable influence behind Cassie's claims. This unprecedented loss of control marks a serious turning point in this case. Diddy's carefully crafted image of composure and innocence cracked wide open in front of everyone. You can repair a reputation after losing a case, but it's much harder to come back from showing exactly the kind of volatile behavior that Cassie has been describing all along. The judge has now issued a stern warning about courtroom conduct, and Diddy's team is in full damage control mode, but the impact of yesterday's meltdown cannot be undone.
Be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. You know, people who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers, you know, Austin Powers, Mike Myers. Why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have to sit on that witness stand across from someone who can buy and sell their whole families, who is accused of behaving violent in the past toward both male and female adversaries or so-called friends who ticked him off. You know, he allegedly firebombed this one rapper's car for allegedly being interested in the same woman. There are questions about whether he's potentially done worse than that to others. And these young women with no power and no money who could put him behind bars for the rest of his life have to sit there, look him in the eye and say what he did to them. Now, that's going to be a very tall order. There's already been a question about whether one has bailed. They couldn't find this one witness late last week, and the prosecution wasn't sure whether she'd left, pieced out. And even if they don't piece out, will they stick by their stories on the stand? It's a very...
Megyn Kelly shocked everyone when she completely abandoned her usual political hot takes this week. Instead, she zeroed in on Cassie's case against Diddy. This wasn't just a passing mention either. Kelly devoted a full 20-minute segment to breaking down every single detail of the allegations against the music mogul. Kelly didn't approach this as just another commentator. She leaned hard into her legal background, carefully analyzing text messages, timelines, and witness statements one by one. She went through the evidence, methodically pointing out inconsistencies in Diddy's public statements and highlighting patterns of behavior that matched Cassie's allegations. The way she presented it left viewers with one clear impression: Diddy is not the victim here. At one point, Kelly looked directly into the camera with that intense stare she's known for and said, "As a woman and a mother, I cannot stay silent watching this unfold. The evidence here speaks volumes." That moment hit different. This wasn't just another celebrity gossip story for her. You could see it in her eyes. She was genuinely disturbed by what she'd uncovered. The most surprising part of Kelly's segment came when she revealed details about evidence that hasn't been widely reported. She referenced specific text messages between Diddy and Cassie that supposedly show him acknowledging losing control during arguments. Kelly also mentioned financial records showing unusual payments to Cassie after particularly volatile incidents, payments that weren't part of their contractual arrangement. People are now wondering how Kelly got access to this information when other media outlets haven't reported it. Kelly didn't just rely on documents either. Her segment featured interviews with two domestic violence experts who reviewed the timeline of events Cassie described. These experts validated not just the specific allegations, but explained how the pattern of behavior matched classic abuse cycles. One expert pointed out that the surveillance video that surfaced matches exactly what many victims describe: explosive violence followed by attempts at reconciliation. The reach of Kelly's platform can't be overstated here. Millions watch her show, including people who might end up in the jury pool for this case. Entertainment executives, other celebrities, and industry insiders all saw this segment. Kelly's take on this situation carries weight because of her reputation. For legal analysis combined with her massive audience, Kelly ended her segment by directly calling out other media figures. She asked, "Where is everyone else? Why the silence when the evidence is so clear?" She specifically mentioned several news networks that have given minimal coverage to the case despite the seriousness of the allegations. This is huge because Kelly represents the first major mainstream media figure to explicitly take Cassie's side. Until now, most coverage has been careful, to present both sides or focus narrowly on specific allegations without drawing conclusions. Kelly threw that approach out the window and went Allen supporting Cassie. The timing couldn't be more significant. Kelly's segment aired just hours before. Diddy had his courtroom meltdown sources close to the situation confirm he was looking at clips from Kelly's broadcast on his phone right before he lost control. This wasn't just bad timing. Kelly's very public stance seems to have been the direct trigger for Diddy's explosive reaction. The walls are closing in and Kelly just made them move a lot faster.
She wrote a book about her experience, and she had her lawyer send it to Combs. She wanted to be compensated for the pain that he had put her through, she said, and she asked for $30 million. Combs, she was told, didn't take this seriously. Later, when she filed a civil lawsuit against him, we found out yesterday that he ended up settling that for $20 million. She, of course, was still required to take the stand in this criminal case. And when she was asked, Errol, why she is testifying in this case, she said, "I'm here to do the right thing. I can't carry this anymore. The shame, the guilt." But in terms of the case that we're starting to see, the prosecution we're seeing the foundations of their charges of racketeering, of sex trafficking, of transportation for prostitution. Cassie's testimony has revealed how, in a way, she was almost like a sex slave for Sean Combs. He directed everything that she did, the way that he made her orchestrate these freak-offs that they were engaged in. He had her travel with him. They had escorts traveling to meet them. There were employees who were involved in this, so that ties into this allegation that he was running a criminal enterprise that was running all.
Kelly didn't just say she believed Cassie. She made 5 specific statements that struck Diddy right where it hurts most. Each one hit harder than the last. And honestly, watching the clip back, you can almost see her building towards something devastating. First, Kelly zeroed in on that hotel surveillance video that leaked last month. She played it on screen, stopping at key moments. What we're looking at here is undeniable evidence of a pattern of abuse, she said, her voice steady but filled with disgust. This isn't someone having a bad day. This is someone comfortable with violence. She pointed out how quickly Diddy switched from violent to calm when other people appeared, suggesting this showed practice control rather than a momentary lapse. Then Kelly went after Diddy's entire business empire. Let's talk about how fortunes are built. She said this music empire wasn't just created through talent and hard work. Sources inside the industry have told me for years it was built on intimidation and fear. She mentioned 3 specific instances where artists allegedly had their careers threatened after conflicts with Diddy. This statement alone would damage anyone's reputation, but Kelly was just getting started. The third blow came when Kelly brought up 3 former close associates who have recently distanced themselves from Diddy. She named them directly, all high-profile industry figures who have quietly removed themselves from projects connected to him in the last month. Ask yourself why these people who stood by him for decades are suddenly unavailable for comment and canceling joint appearances. Kelly said they know something and they're running for cover. Things got even more intense when Kelly mentioned financial records. I've spoken with someone who has seen the payment records. She stated firmly, there are multiple 6-figure payments to individuals who later signed NDAs. These weren't business deals, these were silence payments. She didn't explicitly call them hush money, but everyone watching knew exactly what she meant. Kelly then called out celebrities by name, big names, A-list stars who've worked with Diddy for years. Where is your voice now? She asked, listing 5 major stars. Your silence is deafening, and frankly telling. The way she stared into the camera made it feel like she was addressing them personally. But the knockout punch came when Kelly revealed that her sources confirmed additional witnesses are ready to come forward. This isn't just about Cassie, Kelly, said her voice dropping slightly. This is about a pattern spanning decades. More women are preparing to speak, and I'm told the evidence that hasn't yet been made public is damning. That last statement, it's the one that apparently sent Diddy over the edge. Court insiders confirmed that this specific comment about evidence that hasn't yet been made public was visible on Diddy's phone screen. When he began his outburst in court, someone had texted him the clip along with a message that simply read, "It's over." The most terrifying thing for Diddy isn't what Kelly knows, it's what she's hinting at. She ended her segment by promising viewers she would continue covering the story as new information emerges. The implication was clear. There's more coming, and Diddy.
And singer Dawn Richard from the girl group Danity Kane, she is likely on the famous people list because she's one of Diddy's many accusers.
Yeah.
Not in his criminal case, but she sued him civilly last year, claiming that she saw him abuse Cassie, his girlfriend, and that she herself was sexually assaulted, deprived of food, and cheated out of money that she was owed. Guess what? You're going to hear from her attorney in just a hot minute. But first, I want to bring in News Nation correspondent Caitlin Becker, who's outside.